Android 1 operating system. Okay, these devices have to follow certain standards to ensure certain degree of quality, and it will keep getting updates. So the problem I mentioned earlier, Android 1 fixed it. So far it's clear, fixed in the sense that these. So how many of you have bought the Android Me M1? I think it's called.
A1. Me A1.
A1, my mistake. So that's an Android 1.
Yes.
But you've seen Android ones before that. It's powerful, it's fast, right?
It was Micromax with Micromax A1.
Micromax A1.
Back then, like,
So it's designed to be fast. It's designed to have the right stuff based on the standards. But this had a problem. Basically, Google had to chase the manufacturers. Anything that there was a lot of discussions. It was difficult. So they added one more thing called Android Oreo, which is purely software based. This was mostly a partnership with hardware companies. This is just software. A software which checks the minimum capabilities of the OS. I mean, like if there's less RAM, it defaults to Android Go, or it uses Android Oreo. So phones that are capable uses Android Oreo. Phones that are not so capable, they use Android Go. So this is purely software, but there is a catch to Android Go. Now, let me see if I can access. So in Android Go, what they do is they force developers to build apps that work well with these low-end devices. They have lots of restrictions. So before I go into the coding aspect, I'll just give you a quick idea. Actually, let me see if I missed anything. So for one thing, the Play Store. Android Go has their own Play Store. Facebook Lite, Flipkart Lite, Flipkart Go, all the light versions of the apps are. So they have a curated Play Store. They also have, so again, the apps have to be designed for Go, otherwise they won't come there. So if I have an Android Go device, and also one more point, they did not replace Android 1 with Android Go. They work side by side. So now Android 1 is for middle range phones, and Android Go is for low-end phones, entry-level phones. And when I say entry-level, I'm talking about 3,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees phones. That's why there's so much requirements here, because it has to run on a less than 1 GB, less than half a GB RAM systems. All right, let's see if I missed anything here. I think we're good. So, quick idea. These are the aspects that you have to consider as developers if you want to build for Android Go. This came very recently, so if you want to try your luck in app development in a field which is potentially new, like there's less market, means it's new, right? So you have an advantage. Take advantage of it. Learn the stuff. It shouldn't be too difficult, and build apps for Android Go users. And we're talking about a market which is getting into apps, right? So most likely they'll use your app, they like it, they keep it. So you have some potential there. Better performance, saving. Okay, I don't need to go into that now. So a few, just quickly go through it. One is it has more space, memory space. App sizes are small, so you can install it from the Play Store easily. Also, we're talking about storage here, which there might not be enough. They introduced their own Files Go app, which helps them clear up space. More products of Google Go. I mean, and this is the linguistic barrier I want to tell you about. They're constantly adding support for different languages. So now this supports Tamil. My mom uses this to write Malayalam. So they're breaking the barriers every day. And I'll come to this later. So I think this is good enough. Cool. So I've told you all of this. As developers, you're supposed to look for something more. I mean, what's in it for you? Ideally, why should you care? So again, I'm not going to go in depth, but basically, it's a good market. There's potential. So because you're making it for your native language, right? You to some extent know these people. You are these people, right? So you have a better chance of building these apps better than most people. People trust their own apps that uses their own language. I missed the first line. So basically, you get all of this if you start working on it. Making a difference, I added because okay. So as a developer, I really love the idea of my apps being used. I don't know. It's a really nice feeling. You make an app, someone uses it, it feels good. There's no denying, no one can take that out. So that's one small part of it, but you can easily monetize off it. You can basically enjoy what you do, And like I did some competitions, and like I said, I just registered. Nothing was planned. Either win or you lose, but it worked out. Do the same. Just try, attempt. You might actually get a little bit of recognition. And these are all kind of iterated in the past slides, but the time is now, ideally. Now, I was planning to go through. How much time do I have left, by the way? Okay. I hope I'm not going too fast.
You have
Right time, right?
10-15 minutes.
Okay, cool. Basically, when you build an app, especially, so this is not specifically for Android Go yet. Android Go has a lot of restrictions. For example, even Android Oreo, with this new operating system, to fix the problem of users not updating their apps beyond August 2018 or November 2018, each have a different deadline. If you make a new release, you have to meet the guidelines of Android Oreo, which is heavy guidelines, like it won't allow you to waste battery. Significant number of restrictions. So this is just a quick overview of what all areas you have to focus on. But depending on what you're building for, the restrictions can be more, less. You have to do your own research. I'm just trying to make you aware what's possible, but in the end you have to study, and everything is on the developer documentation. Everything's there. It's the place to go. So again, connectivity, data cost, device capability, battery consumption, and user interface and content. Connectivity, there's a few things you can do. For example, you have to test for conditions where there's either no internet or bad network connectivity. 2G and whatnot, right? Edge, and it gets disconnected after a while, your requests just start failing. So if you want, so this is just the first step, but in the Android emulator, you can actually, I think I'll just move on. And so I'll just talk randomly, but ideally one is, because of the fact that connectivity is an issue, add offline support. There's a lot of options on this. Realm, there's Room. There's a lot of new technologies that Android is introducing or third-party players are introducing that make offline support very easy. Extremely easy. You just follow the instructions, there's videos. So this makes a huge difference, at least if you're targeting this area. Also, make sure you have the ability to share. If one person has support for it, they can share it with someone using SMSs. So that's one. Two, most people don't realize this, but you actually have an option in the Android emulator. So you can change the network type to 2G. You can change the signal strength. You can actually replicate the conditions while you develop. So this is accessible to you at all times. It's also a very small step, which can make a huge difference. So there's a lot of things you can do, but these are the most simple steps that I have taken. They're very easy to do. If you write Facebook, Steto on Google, you'll find the instructions. You copy 2-3 lines of code, add it to your build. So if you use retrofit or OKHTTP, you can connect using Interceptor. Have you seen the Google Chrome developer tools section? You have, right? It's extremely useful if you're into front-end development. You can check the network request. In sources, you can check the cookies and the cache. Using Steto, you can now connect this and use Android Studio in the same way. These are all the requests my app made. So in terms of connectivity and data cost, I can see how much memory each request took. So, and I can change if I can do something about it, I'll change it on the server. I can see the latency. I can see how many requests of the same type happen. So if I see something, why am I making the same request 4 times on the same page? Something is wrong. Let me fix that. Remove a few of them. So this gives you a view in which you can actually figure out what's useful, what's redundant, what can be improved. And also if you click sources on top, you can check out the database. You can edit values from this. It's very easy to develop with Steto, so it's something I recommend you try. It's a little bit of effort, but it makes your development process much better. Second, again, all of these are very easy steps. You don't have to learn much, just plug it in essence. You've heard of Firebase?
Yes.
So you add a Firebase, so again, the steps are there on Firebase, but one component is performance. You just add the SDK, initialize it in application, and your app, and this SDK will just automatically collect information about your app as it's in production. It'll start pointing out how much time each page took to load. These are milliseconds, but they at least help you. This is in seconds, but if you click view traces, you can see how much how much time it takes to load. You can improve on it. You can see every request made based on which part of the world is being used. So when you test locally, right, on your computer, you can only see within that environment. Different devices have different problems, different specifications. You can see how it responds in Indonesia. You can see how your app responds. You can see how much time it took for each request. You just click above the traces and the network request. It's automatically collected. You just have to look, and you notice in some places people are suffering. And then if I do care, I can do something about it. So again, it's automatic monitoring. It's Firebase performance. Second, if you upload on the Play Store, you might notice something known as Android Vitals. It's just a section, you just tap on it. Same case. Google is seriously trying to make it so that your apps are good. They're doing everything in your power to make it extremely simple. You just have to take the first step, and if you want to go in advance, again, all of this is simple. You want to take one more step in an advanced manner, it's the documentation, everything is available. Right now, they've scanned some bad behaviors in my app, and they've recommended it. But even then, it's about 0.22% of my production is affected. So even though it's orange right now, you can actually, depending on what kind of app you're building and the audience, you can decide if it's worth investing in or not. But it helps you understand if there is a problem. Decision to change is up to you. Okay. How many of you have faced ANRs, Android not responding? You have. Oh, okay, more. So if you look at documentation, it looks very simple. Don't run anything on the UI thread for more than 5 seconds. It seems reasonable, but it still happens. So sometimes you don't realize it, but on some devices, a task you think is insignificant takes a little longer than they should, and then this thing pops up. It's very irritating. On my phone, everything's fine. On my emulator, everything's fine. People are complaining the app is slow, it crashes. I get frustrated. Where's the problem? So if you use Crashlytics, it's a good tool to monitor crashes. It tracks crashes. And there's also something known as non-fatals. So you can log your own things, custom events, like say the people give an unpleasant rating. You can save that in non-fatals if you want, but it's designed for crashes, exceptions. So I've combined ANR Watchdog. Again, you can just write this keyword down and Google it, integrate it in your app. This will force a crash if there's an ANR rating. And if I can catch that crash and send it to Crashlytics, I can figure out all the places in my app where it's slow. Not for me, but some guy on the other side of the world. So I know which area was slow for him. Otherwise, I have no idea. Even though the Play Store does collect all of this information, it's irregular. If I look at Crashlytics and Play Store, it's not always the same. So whatever steps you can take, you can go for it. There's also the Android Studio Profiler. Again, up to you if you want to go. It's already there. It should not take much to understand. The basic idea is if there's a lot of ups and downs, you understand something is wrong. Different for each section, but I have a feeling I'm running out of time, so I'm going a little fast. Okay, user interfaces. So this is a huge topic on its own, extremely huge. One issue, if you talk about rural areas, you're talking about the next billion is basically people who use internet for the first time, right? How do you know if I swipe it, the navigation drawer will open? How do I know if I tap that search button on top, a search will open? Everything is new to them, right? So you will struggle to figure out the design that works for them. I find Snapchat very confusing. It's personal, but it is very confusing for me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Everything is something. But have you used Airtel Wink, the music app? At first I looked at it, I thought it's not that good of an app. It looks kind of cheap. But then later I found out they designed it to be like that. They designed it so it's easy to understand. The buttons look like buttons. And you click on it. So depending on who you're building for, you have to keep that consideration. Also small tips. So this is something I realized later. You see the small icon here, like the settings icon. So if you add the setting as is, the padding will be this much. Now this is a very vast field, but this is one small thing I figured out on my own and I was kind of surprised. Your thumb is pretty huge and you'll miss it. So I'm going to tap around this button, I won't get it, and I give up. So one way to make it so that the buttons are clickable, even if you choose to make it small because of design, increase the padding. So it's small tips. Again, there's this site which goes into research. There's Facebook research and Google research on this. If you take some time out to read, you'll learn a few things along the way. So just sharing this as well if anyone's interested. Also, one thing I can mention is Material UI was meant as a standard. It's still confusing to a lot of people, but the advantage of following Material UI is most of the apps use Material UI. So if you figure out one or two apps, you figure out Gmail, you figure out Hangouts, you figure out WhatsApp, eventually your app becomes a little easier to understand because the app they use the most matches. So there's an advantage to following a standard, which is what Material UI is. They're not they're guidelines, but yeah. Okay, right now the next few sections is basically, I'm encouraging you to build. Make anything, but build something you think is useful. One is open government data. Wait, by the way, do you guys have to leave somewhere? No, okay, fine. I just open government data. Write data.gov.in. You'll find a lot of data sets provided by the government. A significant amount. You can work on finance, food, defense. You can look at crime statistics and make a little graph to figure out which areas are safe, which are not. You can take agriculture like I did and build something for farmers. So there's a lot of ideas and there's a lot of information available. I recommend you just try it. You might actually make something useful. Second, this is again from that same paper. They've actually analyzed the kind of apps. So I told you that there's a lot of potentially Indian language apps, right? So these are the top categories that you can use. One, they've divided in the terms of mature, growth, and emerging. So the most popular, chat applications and digital entertainment. Then comes social media and digital news. And then the last section is basically government services, e-retailing, digital classifieds, payments, and write-ups. And this is the thing I was telling you, one example of that app. So if anyone is interested, I can share a presentation later, but if you are trying to think of something useful, consider these categories because these categories are working. These are the categories people are currently interested in. And okay, how much time do I have left?
You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes more, okay. This is what I learned in Google, in brief to be fair, but it's a beautiful process. HCD is hear, create, and deliver. It basically means you want to build something, but you don't know what you want to build, as in you want to make it useful, plain and simple. So you first go and interview the people you're making it for. You don't tell them, would you like this feature, would you like that feature? You instead ask them, what's your problem, as in what's issue you're facing in life, and you just talk to them. You try to understand them. You don't put in your idea in, you just listen. Your idea might change over time. You talk to them, you get feedback from them, you learn from them. They'll tell you random things. Like in Google, someone would say, they want to talk about their safety issues. Some people would say that they don't trust mobile, so they trust apps or websites only if their son accepts it. We get random information which may not be relevant to us because we are trying to design a digital literacy solution, educational platform to help them learn. So you learn a lot of random stuff, but in the create phase, you will compile all the interviews and feedback you get and try to get some meaning out of them. Sometimes when you look at them from a distance, you'll figure something out, and then you create a prototype that you feel might be useful to them. So if I just make this a little simple, talk to the people you want to build for. Don't tell them your idea. Just understand their problem and try to figure out if it's useful to them. One technique in the here phase is known as sacrificial technique. Question is like, would you pay 10 rupees for this feature or would you pay 20 rupees? So you can see how much willingness they have towards an idea. You create a prototype and you give it in small segments, your alpha, beta testing in a sense, and get feedback from them. And finally, once it's ready, you deliver it. Again, iterate the steps. Now, one last thing. This thing is a little chart I enjoy a lot. If you are building a solution, if you're building something, and if you're trying to create a business, these are the factors you have to consider, ideally. Feasibility is whether your idea can be created, translated, implemented, it's short term. Viability is long term, whether your idea will sustain, will it last. And second, if it helps someone, if it offers some value in a form. So ideally, when one aspect of design innovation was, it has to overlap. You have to create a solution that meets all these three factors. Viability also includes sustain. So if it makes money, you can sustain your idea and business. And he already covered this in the beginning, but if Rajat wants, he can start again. I think the Amity App Initiative is actually trying to encourage people to make apps. You have a task of 100 apps this year, right?
Right.
So
we are planning to have 100 apps.
Definitely go to Rajat. He'll help you out, set it up. Everything I've told you, he's familiar with. I'm not always an Amity, but he is. Go to him, learn, release it in Amity, and get better at your skill, I guess. And maybe it will be useful. And